You're watching We Talk Mania, and I'm your host CJ. Welcome back to another album ranking. And today's album ranking is the one that I voted on because, well, it was a tie, and I'm the tiebreaker. So, yeah, I decided on Iced Earth. I know a lot of people wanted AC/DC, but I kind of like Iced Earth a little bit better. So, I decided to go with Iced Earth because, well, it was 2 votes to 2 votes. So I decided, well, yeah. So I've liked Diced Earth for years, ever since like 2014. My introduction album was Plagues of Babylon. Yeah, 12 studio albums, and let's go into it. Let's get into the ranking here. First one, or at number 12, is Framing Armageddon, Something Wicked Part 1 from 2007. I would not say this album is a dud, but it just isn't up to the standard of what the other albums are. When this one hits, it hits hard, but when it doesn't, it's just flat, honestly. This is my least favorite album from them, and there's a reason for it, just because it's not as intense as their other stuff. As former Judas Priest vocalist, Tim Ripper Owens on it as well. The vocals are good. His vocals are good on Ice to Earth, as you will see. But yeah, this album just, for some reason, I just don't connect with too much, and just really have never gotten into it. It just isn't intense enough and gets stale in certain parts. 8.6 out of 10. It was actually lower last time that I went through this discography. Wasn't happy with the video, so I deleted it. So that's why this Ice to Earth is the first one on my channel. My favorite song is Setian Massacre. Pretty good song, but it just falls on a record that's kind of like falls flat, kind of. So yeah, it's on an album that kind of falls a little bit flat. Number 11 is my introduction. If you know what my introduction is, it is Plague of Babylon from 2014. Really enjoyable, but not as good as the ones above it. This one is more of a slower paced album and doesn't feel like the other Iced Earth releases. It doesn't have that like thrash sound to it that the other ones have. This is one of 3 of Iced Earth releases I don't go back to often, but when I do, I enjoy it. It has the Highwaymen cover and Spirit of the Times, which is John Schaefer's other band, Sons of Liberty. They do a cover of that on Iced Earth. I wouldn't really consider it a cover if John Schaefer's the one, if it's an Iced Earth. But yeah, 9 out of 10. Plagues of Babylon is the best song on this album, the title track. And the rest of them are kind of like just running through, but pretty good as well. There's some good stuff on it, some not so iffy stuff. There's some iffy stuff to it. Number 10, The Crucible of Man, Something Wicked Part 2 from 2008. I like this album more now than I did years ago. This used to be my least favorite album, but it moved up 2 spots. While not having the good intensity as the classics, Crucible accomplishes more than Framing Armageddon does. It's less flat, it's more enjoyable. Maybe it's just because Matt Barlow is on vocals. Their classic vocalist, the one that's on basically all their like really hard-hitting albums and earlier records. This album is above average for a band, is really enjoyable, but I prefer the albums above it, which the ones above it are a 10 out of 10. This one's a 9.5 out of 10. My favorite song is The Revealing. Very good song. Actually, really good song, but it just, again, it's on an album that has some like iffy ones, but it's still a fun, enjoyable album. Any of these ones are. Any Iced Earth album is going to be fun and enjoyable to listen to. There's not really any like, it's not like Celtic Frost or Korn where there's some really duds. Number 9 is actually quite controversial, Burnt Offerings from 1995. I know a lot of people are going to be mad that I put this one this low, but yeah, I like their other ones better, the ones up above it. This album is good, but I don't go back to it often. I I go back to it when I want to listen to Dante's Inferno or Diary, but just other times I really don't go back to it. It's Iced Earth's darkest sounding album. It is their darkest and more raw sounding record, and first with Matt Barlow on vocals. The songs are really good on this one. Dante's Inferno as the 15-minute masterpiece, Last December, and Burnt Offerings being standouts. The reason it is this low is Iced Earth has so many other good releases, and if this was any other band that released this, it would actually be it would be probably their best album, but Iced Earth is just one of those bands that just have massive records. And this is one that kind of falls a little bit short when it comes to there are other ones that are above it on the list. 10 out of 10. Actually, I like everything on it. I like every song on it, so it's not like it's not a bad album at all. I like everything on it. My favorite song is Diary. I love this. I love the song Diary. It's one of my favorites from Iced Earth. Number 8 is Horror Show from 2001. The concept for this album really connects to me because I am a huge fan of horror. I definitely like the horror genre. The album is still as intense as always and still has that thrash elements that I like in Iced Earth sound. Every song is about a horror story, and I think the concept is neat and well executed. The John Schaefer riffage, he's classic for riffs. Absolutely classic. The Iced Earth is just absolutely classic for just intense riffs. And yeah, master riff writer. As well as these riffs are some of the most memorable riffs are on this album, like Jack, Damien, Wolf, Frankenstein, Phantom of the Opera, Jekyll and Hyde. A lot of good songs on here. It is a 10 out of 10. Everything above it is 10 out of 10. My favorite song is Ghost of Freedom. For some reason, that song is just so good. I just can't really explain it. I just love that song. So I gotta move up the list. Number 7 is the Dark Saga. Kind of a controversial one to have this low at number 7, but this one lowers the intensity but increases the melodic sound. That's the whole thing with this album. This album is more melodic than the 3 releases before it, but keeps the thrash and power metal sound, unlike their later stuff somewhat. This album has quality songs that are fantastic, as well as a ballad, which Iced Earth didn't have before. They pulled it off. They pulled off a ballad on this one. I Died for You. If you've heard that song, it's just an absolute classic. It is a transition. I would say this is a transitional album to the more later discography, but 10 out of 10, great stuff. Violate is my favorite song on this album. Violate is just one of the best Iced Earth tracks ever. Number 6, just missing number 5, is Incorruptible from 2017. One of the most recent one to date, and I hope it's not their last. I'd love to see a new album down the road. Yeah, if you know, you know. Just missing the 5th position, as I prefer the one at number 5 over this one. The one at number 5 is a classic. This album has the bite that's on their classic albums, with the thrash sound playing a big role. This one has a big thrash metal thing to it. If you know, it's like one of my favorite things about Iced Earth is they have like that power metal, thrash metal type thing going on. This album has the songs feel like epics, and the whole album being a ride. 10 out of 10. My favorite song is Clear the Way, which is about the Irish Brigade and the Battle of Fredericksburg. And the song is 10 minutes, and it's just an absolute masterpiece. If you've never checked that song out, you should. It's very good. It's the last one on the album. The other ones being good too, the other songs. Number 5 is going to be Night of the Storm Rider from 1991, their second studio album. This is a fine album, and that didn't really age well for most, because a lot of people would put this at the very bottom of the list for most people. But I love this album. It continues what I like about the album before it. The tone on this album is just really fucking heavy, honestly, and intense all the way through. The songs are perfectly executed. And for this period in the 90s, Iced Earth was killing it with grunge being out and nobody giving a shit about thrash metal anymore, and nobody giving a shit about like anything outside of like Pantera's groove metal. Iced Earth was killing it with the thrash slash power metal sound and actually making quite an impact, but kind of still, they never really broke the grasp of the underground. But yeah, that album definitely was great back then and still is. I wasn't alive back then, but it's still a great. It's still. Desert Rain is my favorite song on the album. Just absolutely a classic song. Number 4 is Dystopia from 2011. I know a lot of people would put this pretty low on the list. The title of this album says everything as it paints a vivid picture of a dystopian society with no freedoms and full government control. The addition of Stu Block breathed new life into the band, and that's what makes this album one of my favorites. The album sound is just big, with big songs and big moments, like songs like Anthem, Dark City, Boiling Point, and End of Innocence. This album is just non-stop bangers and just one of the best albums from the 2010s. 10 out of 10, my favorite song is Dystopia. I just love the song Dystopia. It just paints that whole vivid picture of the dystopian society. And yeah. Number 3 is actually the one that was number 1 last time, The Glorious Burden from 2004. You either hate it or love it. It's the one with Tim Ripper Owens on vocals, the former vocalist of Judas Priest when Rob Halford stepped away, and they did 2 albums there. While not having that thrash element of the previous releases, it has relatable content and the riffage that Iced Earth fans like. Yeah, I'm going to explain it later when I get down to the bottom where it's my favorite songs. This album was previously my favorite, but re-listening to it makes me put it here. Some of Iced Earth's best songs are on the album, and most are about like U.S. history and patriotism, and just, yeah. It executes the patriotism part of it without being cringy like some other artists do. Yeah. It definitely doesn't have a cringe to it like most patriotism stuff does in metal and other parts of music. It's really executed quite good here. My favorite songs are the Gettysburg Trilogy. The last 3 songs in the album are basically about the first, second, and third days of Gettysburg. Other ones I like are When the Eagle Cries, Declaration Day, The Reckoning, Red Baron, Valley Forge. There's a lot of good stuff on here as well. Very good album, and you either love it or hate it. I know a lot of people that absolutely hate this album and never want to listen to it ever again, but I'm one of them that actually quite likes it. Number 2 is Iced Earth, the debut album from 1990. I know a lot of people would put this very low on the list, but in my opinion, this is one of Iced Earth's best releases. If I was to make a top 10 best debut albums in heavy metal, this one would probably be on there. Pretty high, actually. I'd probably put it top 5 if I was to say so. The songs are just perfect with the blend of thrash and power metal. The whole album has this mystical type tone to it that the other albums don't have, and just makes the Iced Earth album. It just makes this one the one that I remember the mostly, except number 1. You already know what number 1 is. To think this lineup only lasted 1 album, their vocalist left after this album, and then Storm Rider, the vocalist, left after that album as well, so this is the only album with that one vocalist on it. So, yeah, pretty good. My favorite song is the title track, the Iced Earth title track. just that whole different parts to that song, the slow down, like, interlude or whatever it's in that song, just amazing. And number one is Something Wicked This Way Comes from 1998. Embodies everything I like about Iced Earth. This one has the melodic sound and the thrash metal sound, the intensity of the previous ones with the melodic of Dark Saga. It just had it blended together, and it's just great. AKA the whole damn package, honestly. This album is a riff fest from start to finish with the classic Schaefer riffage we all love. I love this album so much. I actually have it on my battle vest. I actually have this album as a patch on one of my vests. Um, this is one of my all-time favorite albums. Picking a favorite song from this album is impossible, honestly, because all the songs are fantastic. This is Iced Earth's best album. I'd like to see what you think in the comments section, but I'm going to go off on a limb and say that this one is my favorite. Something Wicked This Way Comes from 1998. But yeah, that's how I ranked Iced Earth. That's how I rank Iced Earth. Hope everyone liked it. And yeah, I'll see everyone whenever I decide to upload again.